Hello, this is Miriam Knight, speaking with Ainslie MacLeod, the author of The Transformation, Healing Your Past Lives to Realize Your Soul's Potential. Ainslie, it has such a wonderful cover, and it's very reminiscent of the cover of your previous book.
Yeah, let me hold this up here.
It's like one of these Magritte paintings.
Right.
Tell me about the imagery of the cover and what is the book about?
Well, the door on the cover represents a portal into another world, which is really what I have access to as a psychic. That's where the door came about.
Uh-huh.
And the book itself, the transformation the transformation itself is a shift that's going on. In fact, you hear a lot of people talking about 2012 and big shifts and so on. This is about the transformation that's taking our souls, taking us to a higher place of consciousness, and it will do it over a period of generations, or you can do it very much quicker by using some of the techniques that are given in this book.
So this is something that's up to us to do rather than something that's happening to the population at large?
It's actually, in a way, it's both, because the transformation will happen regardless. But what you can do as an individual is that you can undergo personal transformation, which becomes part of that larger transformation. And you can do it a lot faster. You can do it in this life rather than having to wait over a period of many lifetimes to get to that stage. It's about taking your consciousness from what they call stage 3, and when I say they, I mean my spirit guides, the ones I work with, taking it from stage 3 to stage 4. So it's something that's going to elevate all of us eventually. And
I love the way you just kind of slipped in my spirit guides, the ones I work with.
When you've been doing it as long as I have, it's just like having these invisible buddies, these friends. I'm so used to having them around.
Well, on digital cameras, sometimes you pick up other energies. Who knows what we might see on this?
Exactly. It may not be so invisible. I started working with spirit guides about 12 years ago. I had a couple of interesting little epiphanies, and one was when I realized that I should be doing this kind of work. I ran into a deceased uncle in a bookstore, which was a bit of a surprise, and it was a momentary thing. I mean, it was absolutely fleeting. He was just kind of there for a second, but very real, with a message about wanting to talk to me and work with me, which was something that I'd heard from psychics before. And in fact, I was resisting it, but I also had no idea really how to get started with this sort of thing. So I just sat down one evening and went, okay, let's see if I can do it. And started working first of all with my uncle, just getting an idea of how the universe works and how spirit guides work. And then I was essentially passed on to these more elevated spirit guides. The difference being that my uncle was on what they call the astral plane, where we go in between lifetimes. You and I, we might act as spirit guides when we go, over to the other side after this life.
Well, do you think it was because it was somebody who was familiar to you that they wanted to ease you into this?
Yeah. I come across that in my work. A lot of times it's even in the early days before I learned to protect myself, I'd be talking to somebody and suddenly Great Aunt Maisie would come in with some message and something they wanted to talk about. And I learned to stop that happening because it was really sort of interfering. Because the guides I'm talking to now are on a sort of elevated level. I mean, they're above that astral plane. The difference between the astral plane and what's called the causal plane, where the spirit guides I work with are, is that on the astral plane you get a limited view. It's like you still got the blinders on, even though you're on the other side. Once you get up to the causal plane, the spirit guides there it's almost like the blinders are completely off. They have access to everything about you, your life plan, what your soul wanted to get, so came to this world to achieve, and also information about past lives, and even the past lives and present lives of those around you. So they have a much broader view of things. And so in my work, I'm able to not only work with a person, but I can get information about mom and dad and their kids and so on as well.
Why do you think they chose you to come through to?
A couple of reasons. One is because it's to do with sensitivity. It's a lot easier for them to work with somebody who's more on the sensitive side, which I was. It's something I talk about in my first book about soul types. And I was a creative, sensitive, creative, artistic type, so it's a lot easier for them to work with me. And the other thing was really my personal interest in it. I mean, I was fascinated by psychics, particularly, because I'd run into some really good psychics back in England in the 80s. All of whom kept telling me that I was psychic and I should be doing something with it. And, you know, I felt this psychic as a piece of toast, you know. I thought other people were, you know, more spiritual. I mean, I swore, I drank, I smoked cigarettes, you know. I was like, I didn't think of myself as, you know,
all the real vices.
No, yeah, you know, but I didn't think of myself as the kind of person who would end up doing that kind of work. And it was, you know, finally when I had that epiphany, the interest level was so strong. I was reading books on spirituality. I was fascinated by how does the whole thing work. I had another epiphany that came after a prediction came true very dramatically, and I was in a room in California, my first night in California, and I heard the voice of a psychic from probably about 12 years before, when I lived in London at the time. And he had said, "You're going to end up in California." And I kind of joked it, and I protested. I said, "Oh, no, I went there once, hated it." He said, "There's nothing you can do, nothing." And I went, "Okay." Well, I heard that voice in this room. And the next day I went to a metaphysical bookstore in San Francisco, Fields Bookstore, I'm down there, and just came out, you know, with piles of books. I just wanted to find out how this works. If somebody can tell you with such conviction that you're going to end up in California, and I did, you know, obviously I had to take the steps to get there, but it was all like, it just seemed like bizarre synchronicities. And I realized that something huge must be going on the other side. Mm-hmm. So I had this huge interest in that sort of aspect of spirituality. And so, you know, as far as being chosen for the work, I mean, it's also something that you know, my soul had intended before I came here.
So you volunteered on some plane or another.
Yeah. So there was always there was already that. And what I found working with clients is that if somebody has a talent for something, and intuition is a talent, it's something that you develop over other lifetimes and you're able to bring into this life. You know, maybe you don't even do it consciously, but you've had the chance to build. And it's like music or any other talent that you need to work on it as well. So what I found working with people who have talents is that they have the passion as well. So I had somebody who's very talented with music, who has a passion to, you know, put in all those hours of practice and learning. I did the same. I worked and worked and worked and worked. And I have clients who will occasionally say to me, "Well, I've tried talking with my spirit guides and I'm not getting anything." And, you know, I talk about Malcolm Gladwell's book where he talks about doing 10,000 hours of practice. And, you know, it's not to brag. I just wanted to do it. I was really excited and passionate. So I put in hour after hour talking to my guides and learning how to keep negative energy out of the picture and keep focused and so on. And, you know, I'll say to the client, maybe, you know, you doing half an hour is possibly not enough. You need to maybe practice a little bit longer to really be able to hear what your spirit guides are